Some of our themes will include swing music, blues, heart-wrenching torch songs, early rock and roll, girl groups, soul, and R&B.
KSJE is supported by San Juan Regional Medical Center, here to meet your urgent and emergent medical needs, whether they are COVID-19 related or not. Medical emergencies happen when you least expect them, whether it's a stroke, heart attack, illness, or injury. San Juan Regional Medical Center's caregivers are here to provide care to you and your loved ones. Find out more online at sanjuanregional.com. Ten minutes past 8 o'clock. It is Thursday morning, August 20th. Good morning, everyone. I'm Scott Nicklin. Thanks for tuning in to KSJE, 90.9 FM over the air here in San Juan County, 103.3 FM over the air in Durango, Colorado, and of course streaming everywhere from our website at ksje.com. Welcome also to our viewers who are watching this visual radio program. We're streaming live to the KSJE YouTube channel and Facebook page. We're glad you're with us, everybody. Coming up this morning, we are talking about the 2020 census with my guests who are here in the studio, so stay tuned for that. We'll let you know how to get involved, of course, and how important the census is to our local communities. That is coming up in the next few moments right here on KSJE. Then, of course, it's our COVID information program coming up at 9 a.m. live on YouTube and Facebook. Megan Cullip will be joining me here in Studio A, and this morning our guest, Dr. David Scrase, will be joining us from Santa Fe. He, of course, is the New Mexico Human Services Secretary. He'll be talking about some of the criteria that the state is using to allow businesses to reopen, how San Juan County numbers are looking, and more. That's coming up this morning at 9 a.m. on YouTube and Facebook, and a rebroadcast, of course, on our partner radio station at noon, KNMI, and also here on KSJE at 5:06 p.m. this afternoon. On the radio side of things at 9, Mick Hess will take us roving with the arts, our weekday classical music program. Today, Mick is playing selections from Maurice Ravel on the show today, so join us for that on the radio at 9 on KSJE. Don't forget, of course, you can also follow us on Twitter and check us out on Instagram as well, in addition to the other social media. And here's our weather forecast, and I think we're being a little generous with those clip art signs there for rain today. I think we're expecting some scattered showers today. Otherwise, mostly sunny skies, hazy skies. There is an air quality alert in effect. 99 degrees for a high today in Farmington, 63 overnight. 99 again tomorrow with some scattered showers in the forecast, 65 tomorrow night. Sunny and 97 on Saturday, maybe again some scattered showers on Sunday and early next week with overnight lows in the mid to upper 60s. Well, let me introduce my guests who are here with me this morning from San Juan County Counts, talking about the 2020 census. Devin Neeley is here. Good morning.
Good morning, Scott. Thanks for having us.
You bet. Good to see you and good to have you here.
Yeah.
Georgette Allen is here as well from San Juan County Counts. Good morning to you.
Good morning. Thanks for having me in.
You bet. Welcome back. You've been here in a while.
I know, it's been a while. It feels weird. I got to get back into the groove of being on the radio.
Right. And the cameras and all the other stuff that comes with it. So there you go.
Well, if you're talking weather forecast, Georgette is always sunny. So
she is always sunny. That's
you.
very
My
true.
jacket's very sunny today.
Yeah. Exactly. So you were both on this committee, right, that's
Correct.
been formed to help get us through the 2020 census, which, of course, has been a little bit different this year, like everything else in 2020. But the importance of the census is still there, right? I mean, it's
Correct.
something we do every 10 years, and we need to be counted.
Yeah, and let's actually go back to the beginning here in 2018.
1789.
Yeah, 1789, thank you. At the beginning of the San Juan County Complete Counts Committee,
Yes.
the San Juan County Commission impaneled the Complete Counts Committee in 2018, and it's just really the goal is to get everybody in the county counted in the 2020 census, and so we pulled together a group, a very diverse group of folks from the city of Aztec, City of Bloomfield, town of Kirtland, folks from school districts, folks from San Juan College, folks from San Juan Regional Medical Center, all of these people in a room working together to figure out what is the best way to get folks counted in the 2020 census. And so since then, we started with a lot of plans for social gatherings, large mass gatherings.
Community events, some
Right.
fun stuff.
And that was torpedoed rather quickly and unfortunately. And so the census goes on despite a pandemic. We see folks from the Census Bureau that are out on the streets. And they're getting people counted, and fortunately, I think, and I was hoping it would be helpful this year. The census can be completed online, and that's the first way to respond to the census. Online, you can also respond over the phone, and then the good old-fashioned census worker coming to your door. And so that's the part of the operation that we're in right now. Is folks are going to see census workers coming to their door to count the people in your household. It doesn't matter if you're related or not. If they're all the people living in a household need to be counted, and that means big dollars in funding, both federally and from the private sector, for our county.
Right, and we'll talk a little bit about how those dollars add up and what they mean for our communities too. And we were talking before we came on the air this morning that in some cases, if somebody maybe replied to the census over the internet and filled their forms out online, they may still get a door-to-door visit, right? And that may be confusing for some folks, or they're not expecting someone to show up at their door.
Yeah, that's correct. So the Census Bureau sent out information in the mail, and all of those mailers had a unique identifier, and that identifier is tied to an address, a physical address. So everybody that got one of those in the mail has a physical identifier, and if you fill out your census using that identifier, the likelihood is like 99% that there will be no further action, that your census count will be taken, and it's done. However, if you use your physical address and not the identifier, there is a chance, about a 60% chance, that a census worker will come to your door to confirm that information. Further compounded the confusion and frustration in our county is about 25% of the county is considered to be an update leave area. Update leave means that there is a physical address, but you get your mail at a P.O. box, so you're not getting your mail at your front door. It may mean that you are on the Navajo Nation. And so what that means is you did not get an invitation to reply in the mail with a unique identifier, and you had to wait for a census worker to bring that information to you as they were going door to door. That operation, as you might imagine, was delayed significantly and just ended in the last 2 or 3 weeks. And so there's about a quarter of the county which just in the last 2 or 3 weeks received their census information, and they weren't able to respond until that time. So now we're kind of playing catch up. We're trying to get folks to realize how important this is, get their census information in. It is very easy. 10 minutes or so. Georgette did it. She was resistant at first. No, not resistant. She's a busy lady, as are we all.
Procrastinator.
But tell us what your experience was like. How long did it take you?
Wait a minute, I'm going to go back to that jab, because I seem to remember asking you, hey, Devin, have you done your census yet? No, and we're both on the committee.
Well, yeah.
So,
we're all busy people. It's easy to slip through the
I have
cracks.
to tease you about that.
But I believe we can all say here at this room that we've all
Yes.
submitted
Yes.
our census
Yes, we
information.
did.
So,
Exactly.
but how did it go
So-
for you, Georgia?
It was really easy. So I did mine at the computer, and I'm one of those people that you were just talking about. I did receive the card in the mail, but when I sat down to do the census, I didn't have it with me. So I just plugged in the information. It was really quick, like, I don't know, 5-10 minutes. It didn't take very long at all. So, that's good information to know. So I, too, might have a worker come out just to confirm the information on there. So, but it was, really quick, really easy. A couple of questions, and I was done.
There you go. And the Census Bureau is trying to get all this wrapped up by end of September,
September 30th,
correct?
correct, yeah.
So that is why things are maybe ramping up a bit quicker maybe than folks are familiar with.
Yeah, so the original deadline was the end of July. July 28th was
Right.
the original
Well,
deadline.
that wasn't
and
gonna
that's-
happen.
That's changed. That was changed to October. Now we're in September. September 30th is the deadline. And they're working hot and heavy to get this taken care of. There's 5,500 square miles in our county alone. And if we look at, I don't know if you can pull up that graphic, Scott, but there is real-time information showing the response rates across the country. And so across the nation, there's a 64% response rate to the 2020 census. Now, in New Mexico specifically, 54.4% of New Mexicans have responded, and then in the county, only 46% of people have responded. And it's really fascinating to see. You can go all the way down to the city level, to the town level, what's called a census tract. And you can see certain areas that are responding with a better rate than others. The city of Farmington is over 50%. Part of Aztec is over 50%. But again, this is the challenge that we have is on the Navajo Nation, the numbers are in the teens in response. And that's because they're just receiving their census information from a census worker. So this has been a real challenge, and we're not the only county in the state with that challenge. And if we, if you look at that map, and I'm sure Scott can make that available to folks that are listening, if you look at that map, the areas where it's an update leave, where it's a P.O. box, where it's the Navajo Nation, we're seeing a low response rate right now. So that's our goal, is to continue to remind people just how important the census is. And what we need is everybody who has responded to the census to tell their friends and their family, because that's where the influence comes from. If you are reminding your friends and family how important it is, they are going to then understand, and that's where we get a higher response rate, is when folks hear from their sphere of influence about how important it is.
Right, and there's been a lot of talk about the census this year and how important it is, how protected that information is by law, which I think is important too, because a lot of folks maybe aren't quite sure what the Census Bureau does with that information, but they really use it in a lot of different ways. And we'll talk about the funding and the dollars and cents that actually comes from the census information in just a moment. But I think it's important to remind folks that all that information is protected by law. It can't be used for anything else.
It's protected by law, and it's protected by oath, actually. Census Bureau employees take an oath, and they're subject to a $750,000 fine and imprisonment, I believe, up to 30 years for divulging any information that they gather through the census. Now, in 74 years, I think it is, that information is stripped of personal identifiers and released. But it's not shared with law enforcement. It's safe and secure. They're not asking for Social Security numbers. They're not asking for immigration status. All they want to know is how many people live at an address, what their ages are, what their ethnicities are, and what it is it's providing a snapshot in time of the United States. And we can look back every 10 years for the history of the United States and see that snapshot, see how many people live here, see what the breakdown of ages and ethnicities of people that are here. It's called the melting pot for a reason, and we see how diverse our country is. It's really fascinating to be part of history and see the history, and then later on, I don't think there will be the flowery cursive, but the old census ledgers where people would write by hand. Those are really fascinating to see.
Very cool, very cool. And so, as we said, this means a lot for the municipalities, the county.
Correct.
You work for the county, Devin, Neeley, Georgette, Ellen, you work for the city of Farmington. These numbers generate dollars then for these areas, for these governments, right? And for our area based on the population and the number of people who live here, and it covers a lot of different areas, right?
Correct, yeah. In 2016, there was $7.8 billion in federal funding to the state of New Mexico for a lot of different programs, and these programs are things that we have seen in the spotlight very recently, like crime victim assistance, Homeland Security grants, and that's, Homeland Security kind of gets sort of a bad rap, but in the time of COVID, our local emergency management organizations are using Homeland Security funding to buy PPE to distribute to the community. That's where that funding is going. We're also, WIC, Head Start, National School Lunch and School Breakfast programs, public and Indian housing, low-income, energy assistance, child and adult care food programs, child care matching funds. everybody listening understands how important those programs are, and even those specifically 10 times more important than we realized probably before the start of this pandemic. And that funding is so very vital to our area. In 2010, it's estimated that there was a 1.5% undercount in San Juan County, and that is a loss of $97 million a year. And now, Scott, if you put that up, the University of New Mexico Geospatial and Population Studies has put together this map, and for the state in general and for any county you so desire, you can see what the projected losses are in federal funding. $620 million per year.
Right.
No, check that.
For 10 years.
10 years, that's correct.
Okay.
So $620 million, $62 million a year for the next 10 years statewide for a 1% undercount.
If I go to San Juan County,
$37.7 million in
funding.
lost federal funding for a 1% undercount, and there's a slider up there that you can kind of play with and see what changes happen from a 2%, from a 3%. Yeah, you can break it down by cities and see what the very specific $13.6 million in lost funding to the state or to the city of Farmington, and there are so many programs at the city that have federal funds attached to them that wouldn't exist.
Absolutely, and these are programs, that we're providing to our community members, that all the amenities that they so much enjoy, and so when we're missing those dollars, we can't, keep those programs going.
Right,
So.
right. There's a comment about, or a poster, if you will, about education, and so the census numbers fund a lot of education, right?
Correct.
Those population numbers go into that funding formula for schools and colleges, I would think, and those types of programs then.
Yeah, absolutely. There's the funding formulas for many federal programs come from the census count, and it feels antiquated, and I couldn't speak to this most specifically, but for the next 10 years, this count is with us. For the next 10
Right,
years,
that's what we have.
whatever the count is going to be identified as the population of San Juan County, of the city of Farmington, of the city of Aztec, of the town of Kirtland. All of those areas are going to be attached to this number for the next 10 years. So we look around. I think the last census count was 130,000 in 2010. We may look around and go, that doesn't really seem right, for
Right.
whatever
Should
reason.
be bigger.
Maybe it should be.
Should be
Maybe
bigger.
it should be smaller.
Right.
That is our federally designated census count, and that came from a physical count of people in this county in 2010. And so now in 2020 until 2030, this is our count, and we're stuck with it.
Right, for good or for bad.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So
sure.
the other part about funding that's really fascinating to me is we can capture federal dollars that come this direction. What is hard to quantify is we didn't get certain businesses in Farmington until the census count led that business to believe that it was viable for them to be here. There are certain restaurants and certain retail chains that look at areas with a population. If it's under that population, they're not coming here. Despite this being a trade area of more than 300,000 people in the county, in the city, if those businesses don't see the proper population, they're not coming here. Frankly, when was it that Olive Garden came here? It was after new census numbers.
Yeah.
Possible, right?
Yeah, you're right.
And I
There
guess-
was a boom
Well, the same
in
with Dick's, yeah.
exactly
Sporting Good and-
Dick's
yeah.
Sporting Goods. In after 2010, when those numbers came out, we saw an increase in activity because we reached that threshold. So it's easy to say there is so much federal funding that is so important attached to it, but this has long-reaching, huge grasp in our world and in our day-to-day lives. Now, I'm not saying that these businesses are going to close because we're under 130,000, but for continual growth to our area, which is so vital, we have to see an accurate count.
Sure. Well, and I would think, too, they're looking at both our area and the trade area that you mentioned, because we are that retail shopping hub, and so we know we attract people in from southern Colorado and maybe southeastern Utah and northeast Arizona. And so if they're looking at those census numbers, too, that gives them an idea of the greater market area that they're drawing from.
It's more difficult to convince economic development types of a trade area.
Okay.
But if we are trying to convince someone, we can pull those numbers and use those numbers to say, yeah, look, there's a lot of people in La Plata County. There's a lot of people in Archuleta County, in Montezuma County that are coming this direction. San Juan County, Arizona. Check that. San Juan County, Utah.
Right.
Navajo County, Arizona. It's a big trade area. We can look at that.
Sure.
And really gauge better who is here.
Very true. Very true. The other thing I wanted to ask you both about is healthcare, because the census also brings in dollars for healthcare too, right? Supporting what we have here.
Healthcare centers in the state of New Mexico in 2016 got almost $70 million in funding. There is one hospital here which receives a large amount of funding, and again, that's why we asked San Juan Regional Medical Center to join us in this. If you want the health care,
right,
we have to have a complete and accurate count of our area, so that the federal government understands just how important it is. We can say this is a necessity, this is a need, this is something we need here in our area, but without hard facts and figures to back it up, the federal government doesn't exactly believe us sometimes.
True. Well, right. And to know how old our population is, or how young our population is. We've got a bunch of kids coming up through. We need to know that. If we've got a bunch of seniors that are about to retire, we got to know that.
Do we need more physicians for older adults? Do we need more physicians for children? Do we need more dentists? Do we need more specialists for, whatever that may be? And as I see you put up the photo here,
Speaking
I care
of seniors.
about senior services, and these are all folks that frequent the Bloomfield Senior Center.
Nice.
And these people use the food services.
That's right.
They go down to play bingo. Whatever that is, there's federal funding attached to the senior centers that these folks may or may not be able to participate in those activities, and if the federal funding isn't there.
Right. And so I guess I would say, Devin, Neeley, and correct me if I'm wrong, that if the census shows our population has dropped a little bit from the last time, that would mean then probably less federal dollars coming to San Juan County for these types of programs that we're talking about based on these numbers. And unfortunately, if it's an undercount, that's going to be a problem.
That's correct. Here's the deal, isn't we don't say this to scare anybody. There is going to be a reduction in funding if there are fewer people in the county. Let me rephrase that. There's going to be a reduction in funding if there are fewer people counted in the census. Now, if there are actually fewer people in the county, that's fine, because we don't need that additional funding to take care of those additional people.
Right.
However, if the census count is lower, showing fewer people in the county, we will get fewer dollars despite those people not being counted in the census. Despite them being here. They're here. They're using the service. We don't get the federal funding for the service because they weren't counted in the census.
Got it.
This is not doom and gloom. This is not despair. This is not to scare anyone. This is very cold, hard fact that is exactly what is going to happen.
Right. Let me ask Georgette Allen a little bit about the city's part in all this, of course. And I know the city is reliant on federal funds and dollars that come from the census too, right? And so we all know that the governments are, especially right now, having some economic challenges, budget-wise and things like that.
Absolutely, because part of our funding, of course, is from gross receipts as well. But these federal dollars, again, like we stated earlier, it's the amenities that people so much enjoy, and we have so many things here that the city provides. Our golf courses, our pools, our parks, our library, a very popular library that does a lot of programming for kids and families. These are all things that we've come to love and enjoy in our community. And if we don't get those federal dollars, like Devin said, people aren't counted, but we have the people here who are wanting to use that, then that hurts us as a community overall.
Very true.
So.
And so, again, the place to go for information if someone has not yet responded or had information about the census come to them for whatever reason, what can they do?
Well, there's a few different ways, and I'm glad you asked, Scott. And I wish I'd written it down because census2020.gov.
I've got it. It's 2020census.gov.
Oh, thank
Almost,
you.
yeah, it was backwards, yeah.
However, we understand that not everybody in the county has quick, reliable internet service. If you don't, you could do it on your phone. You can also go to the very popular Farmington Public Library,
Yes.
where there are 2 kiosks and 2 opportunities for folks to jump on a tablet and complete their census on a secure form through the federal government. We also have that available at the Aztec Public Library, the San Juan County Administration Building, the MOC at the Farmington Electric Utility Office down off of Browning Parkway, and at Farmington City Hall.
Yeah.
All of those places have a kiosk that you can fill out your census. Again, if you have received your unique identifier, take it with you. Use that to fill it out. If not, fill it out, and a census worker may still come to your door, and if that's the case, then greet them at the door, maybe bring them a bottle of water, because I think they've been working pretty hard. Wear your mask.
Wear your mask, yep.
They're wearing the proper PPE. They're carrying a tablet and identification from the Census Bureau, and there will be no question who they are. They will not ask for any bank account information. They will not ask for any Social Security information. They will not ask for your immigration status. If any of those things come up, that is a red flag, and you need to call non-emergency dispatch and report that. But they're going to be out all over the place for the next probably 3 weeks in our area.
Okay, good to know. And again, especially for places like the Navajo Nation and some of the more rural parts of the county, this is so important, right, to get these people counted.
Yep.
The cities, I think, are doing pretty well, as we've seen from the numbers. But those rural spots, they still need to know representation to know what's going on.
Yep, and again, that's another problem. Is I spoke to a woman in Flora Vista the other day that said that she hasn't gotten anything in the mail, she hasn't gotten anything at her door, and I'm chasing that down for her. But folks with the P.O. Box, they, just like the Navajo Nation, they didn't receive an invitation to reply until very recently. And so... but everybody that lives up towards Navajo Dam and out in Blanco, they count too. All of these people count in the U.S. Census, and they all count towards federal funding. There's a senior center in Blanco,
right?
Right. And that's receiving state and federal funding based on census counts, and we need to know how old everybody is.
That's true. There you go. That's true. One last thing I wanted to ask you about, and that is your little mascot.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
The Count.
The Count. Count San Juan.
Okay.
That was
is our
genius.
mascot.
It really was.
Right.
And so Scott has the Count up on the screen. And Scott, does that look familiar to you at all?
Yeah.
Well, I hadn't really noticed until you mentioned it before the show that maybe there was a bit of a resemblance. So I don't know if I'm getting any residual checks from this or what's going on here.
There are 2 local celebrities that I've heard alleged that may look like.
Okay.
One being the illustrious Scott Micklin.
I see. I don't think my teeth are as pointy, but I'll go with that.
Not
Okay.
quite, but I'm sure we could get you a Dremel tool and get that handled. The hair is very similar, though.
You like the hair. The hair is on point. Literally.
And the other one that I got
I didn't hear the other one.
a dirty look from our sheriff, Shane Ferrari.
Oh, my.
Okay.
Well,
I can
that's
see
good.
that.
Who
I
said
can see that.
he saw a little bit of resemblance from the Count.
We need to get him in the costume then and take some photos for social media. For
That's
some
the
of our
push we
promos.
need.
Yeah.
Yes.
So if you see the Count,
That's
he's
funny.
just around to remind you to get counted in the 2020 census. Count San Juan is a distant cousin of Count Von Count from Sesame Street.
Yes, right.
The country cousin of Count Von Count. And he's reminding you to get counted in the 2020 census.
Well, that's
See,
awesome.
The silver lining is you didn't have to wear that. We were like, Devin, you have to put on the
all
costume
summer long.
and
Yeah.
and the
Yikes.
head and the whole
Boy.
thing. He's like, no, I'm too tall. I can't do it.
Yeah.
I didn't fit in the costume.
Oh, what a shame. But there it is. Well, it's very important, everyone, to be counted. I can't stress that enough to make sure that we are counted. We know our county has been, again, through some economic challenges and things, and so everyone who is here really needs to be counted to make sure those numbers are up to date and as accurate as they can be. We just don't want that undercounted. As we saw, it costs millions and millions of dollars over 10 years.
Yep.
So.
It's actually kind of stressful, frankly.
Yes,
I've been in numerous conversations with numerous other complete count committees in other counties around the state, and it's stressful. And we're not the only county that is seeing a disparity in the response rates. And so we hope that, as I said, even if you have friends in other counties and other parts of the state, let them know how important the census is.
Very true. Very important. Again, the website, 2020census.gov.
Yes, 2020. He looks at
That's
me.
the one.
2020census.gov.
That's where you go, everybody. Great. Thank you both for coming in this morning. It's great to see you.
Yeah, good seeing you.
Thank you very much. Georgette Allen, Devin Neeley, my guests here on KSJE, talking about the 2020 census. And I'll be back with more in just a moment, everyone. The time right now is 8:40 a.m.
Public safety apps might keep you informed, but are they actually good for the public? From American Public Media, this is Marketplace Tech. I'm Molly Wood.
Marketplace Tech is supported by Home Advisor, helping homeowners find the right pros for their home projects. Homeowners can now see upfront pricing, book appointments, and pay for over 100 projects with the Home Advisor app. And by X-Chair Office Chair, dynamic variable lumbar support and 10 ergonomic features for maximum support and comfort at xchair.com or 8444-X-Chair.
Since March, the number of people downloading the safety awareness app Citizen has doubled. Citizen gathers local reports from emergency scanners, crimes, fires, weather hazards, protests, and lets users upload video of what's happening. It also recently added COVID-19 contact tracing to the app. Citizen says it keeps people safe and informed. But like with Nextdoor, Ring, and other safety products, there are fears of unintended consequences, like paranoia, surveillance, endangering yourself to videotape an incident, and the racism that can be inherent in crime reporting. Andrew Frame is the founder and CEO of Citizen. I asked him whether he is worried about all of that.
This is complicated gray area. When I was first starting this, I had a lot of anxiety over what we were doing and how we intended on doing this responsibly. We decided it was unacceptable to send any sort of alert about a suspicious person, because that's not a crime. And there is usually some sort of racial bias underneath all of that. And so we have never, ever entered a suspicious person into the app in spite of hundreds of 911 calls a day to the police reporting suspicious people that we know about. It's in our system. We choose to filter it.
What if one of those suspicious people does turn out to commit a crime and then you didn't have full transparency? Like, I guess I wonder if you feel comfortable with it being your job to decide what's safe, what's not safe, what's racist, what's not racist. Because there's a lot at stake, as you've described it.
There's a ton at stake. And there's no hard place where it makes sense to draw the line, but you have to draw the line. And when you're building new technologies, you're not sure what the unintended consequences are ultimately going to be. You can only use your best wisdom and judgment and do something that you think is right for the greater good.
The app is free. You don't sell ads or user data. What is the plan to monetize?
If you would like to have enhanced offerings and services from Citizen, you will pay us. Those announcements are coming at a later time. Right now, the urgency for us is to work on COVID and getting our contact tracing system to scale so that we can contain this and do our part.
Almost every other company that's in this space, from Ring to Palantir to Clearview AI, has eventually pivoted or started out working with law enforcement. And that makes people nervous. And I think it's fair to ask if that's part of your plan.
The answer is no. I think if I were to announce that we are doing a pivot and we are now going to be selling data to law enforcement, I think you would see about 90+% of all of Citizen employees putting in their resignation that day. It would destroy our culture instantaneously.
Andrew Frame is the CEO of Citizen. You can hear a longer version of our conversation on the Marketplace Tech podcast. I'm Molly Wood, and that's Marketplace Tech.